Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the What You Need to Know to Prosper in the Home-Based Economy webinar. I'm Todd Burrier, and I appreciate you taking your time to be here tonight. I promise to value that time and to deliver to you information that I believe will make a major difference for you as soon as right now. It could be as soon as right now. Because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of changes happening, and it's really good to understand what's happening and what you can do about it. You know, I've been a home-based entrepreneur for 28 years. Actually, I was a home-based entrepreneur way before it made sense and way before it was cool, you know. I originally began my career in banking, and then after a couple of layoffs decided, you know, I never want to be in a situation where someone controls the fate of my future and my family's future. And yeah, I'm not going to say that it was easy, especially starting as many years ago as I did. There were lots of twists and turns and bumps and lots of mistakes and bruises and potholes and you name it, and I went through it. But man, was it worth it? It was really worth it. So over the years, as I was able to build a large multinational business, I've been blessed to have trained and taught entrepreneurs all over the world. I also have done leadership and workforce development training for several major corporations here in the States. And tonight really is, it's perspective and insight, and I'm going to tell you it's really valuable information. There is nothing for you to buy here, so don't worry about getting a pitch. I'm not going to pitch an opportunity. I'm not trying to steer you in a direction. I'm going to share some powerful information. I'll give you my insights as we go. But really, there's clearly a dramatic movement to a home-based economy, and it's really, really important to understand what that can mean in order to take the appropriate action. And so really, that starts with what I would consider the word of the day, or week, or month, or year, or decade, and that is change. You know, change has always been a part of our lives. It really has been the only constant. If you think about it, change and oxygen are really the only constants. But what's happening now is mind-boggling. The rate of change is just compounding faster and faster and faster. And, you know, change in general is a little bit uncomfortable for people. I mean, human beings by nature, we sort of like our stuff where we like our stuff, you know, and change represents moving our stuff, right? It represents, hey, the way I expected things isn't the way they are. And, you know, we are creatures of comfort. We get comfortable in our circumstances. And so change always is difficult for most people, just because it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable, and they're not really sure how to navigate it. But in today's world, it's way different. You know, it used to be, and this saying used to be so appropriate, if you think the way you've always thought, you're going to get what you've always got. That used to be true. That is not true anymore. If you think the way you've always thought in today's world, you're not going to get remotely what you used to get. Matter of fact, what you're going to get is probably not something that you're going to want. And so you have to understand that change always has and always will have both sides of the coin. It will have difficulty and struggle and challenge, and it will have opportunity. And what it does for you and how you navigate in your life has everything to do with whether you embrace it and move towards the opportunity, or whether you stay in the difficulty and you wallow in what you're losing. Right? Because that's just the nature. That's the yin and yang, where one door shuts, another one opens. It's always been that way, and it always will be that way. But I know this affects the way people feel, right? So the question I would submit to you is, how are you feeling about the future? Are you feeling concerned, worried, puzzled, anxious, fearful, maybe a little stressed, maybe sometimes confused, maybe sometimes frustrated? I certainly hope not this one, but some people feel hopeless, right? They feel hopeless because their apple cart has been upset by what's taking place in the world, and they don't really understand that they can do lots about it. You know, so I hope you're not feeling those things, but if you are, I certainly can relate. I mean, I'm a human being. I'm a regular guy. I've been through all kinds of ups and downs in my life. Like I said, you know, my career went through a lot of twists and turns early. Being laid off, I'll never forget that awful feeling of walking into the office and having my boss tell me, you know, I'm sorry, Todd, but we lost our ability to make loans last night. You don't have a job, and you know I've got a pregnant wife at home. We're already, you know, we're at that age in our life where we're struggling to make ends meet. I know what that feels like, you know. I know what it feels like to actually start to have success and make so many mistakes you lose everything. I know what that feels like. I know what it all feels like. I know what it feels like to lose people. I know all that. I personally have been through all that stuff, and I know what it can do. And here's what I know. Everything is temporary. Everything. And if we understand that it's temporary and we can take action, then we can change how we feel. We can change what's possible. And I got to tell you, how would you like to feel like this? How'd you like to feel optimistic all the time? How'd you like to feel excited all the time? Imagine waking up every day and feeling excited. Or better yet, imagine waking up and feeling inspired. Or how about joyful? Joyful is really cool. You know, that's a cool way to feel. How about secure? Secure is a really interesting word, right? It's a very interesting word in today's world. What security is and what it represents. But here's what I'm going to tell you right now. If you get what's going on and you take steps proactively in your life, you can feel like all of this all the time. That doesn't mean your life is going to be a bed of roses. There is no such thing, right? Matter of fact, if you want a bed of roses, you're going to have thorns, right? You're going to have to dig in the dirt. You're going to have to do a lot of different stuff to get your bed of roses. But bottom line is you can have a life like this. That is possible for you. I don't know what it's supposed to look like for you individually. That's up to you, but you can. And it's just a matter of understanding what's going on and what you can do. And that is a really important thing to think, what you can do, what's possible for you. Because I can tell you it's a lot more than you might realize and you might think. You know, I work with people worldwide who have this kind of outlook. And you can too. I know it because I've seen all shapes, sizes, ages, backgrounds, genders, you name it. I've seen it, every kind of person get to this place, and you can too. So first thing you got to know in today's world is the job is not the answer. And you know, I'm just going to be, again, I'm a real guy. I don't pull punches. I call it like it is. And I know a lot about this stuff. The truth is, I hope you love your job. I do. I really hope you love it. I hope you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to go to work. That's a great way to be. So just as an aside, if you don't feel like that one, get another job, right? Life is too short. But if you do love your job, you still have to know it's only part of the answer. And why would I say that? Because the average job is 4.2 years in the United States. 4.2 years. So what does that mean? There is zero security in a job. Zero. I mean, actually, there's less than zero because there's a false sense of security which lulls people to sleep, and they think they're secure when they're not. So really, that's less than zero security. So yes, it's great to have a job to meet your immediate needs, but do not rely on a job for the future, especially now, and here's why. First, you have massive global economic pressure, right? This changes everything all the time, and it's just beginning. The world is shrinking so fast you can't even keep track of it. And so what does this mean? This means jobs move, right? They move, right? So you might have a job with a company that's thriving, and they decide, you know what? It's better economics for us to make our widgets in Kansas as opposed to North Carolina. And so now your job leaves. I mean, you're invited to go. You can go to Kansas if you want and leave where you want to be, unless you want to be in Kansas. That's one possibility. Or maybe they move it to, I don't know, Canada, right? Now they move it to Canada. That's the whole different. But bottom line is they can. Global economics change everything. It changes all kind of competitive balances, and this is just the beginning. We're only seeing the tip of this. And then this is the biggie. This is the biggie. The technology advances that are making our lives pretty cool, right? I mean, if you think about it, it's mind-blowing how fast technology is growing and the pace of change technologically. I mean, just think about the stuff in your house. You know, it's just amazing to me what happens year over year. And now, but that's because that's what I see as a consumer. If you worked inside of technology places, you see what's happening hour over hour, right? I mean, it's just amazing. But what does this mean in the workplace? Well, technology does a lot of stuff, right? It does a lot of stuff. One is it makes people redundant. right? So you already have a situation, because this is compounding. Everything I'm expressing here is compounding, which means that not only is it going to continue to happen, the pace of it is going to go faster. And so redundancy means that at this point, right, if you merge two departments, you really only need one of them. Right? So let's say you took two 20-people departments and you merged them. Now you only need 20 to do what 40 people used to do. But that's a really simplistic example. The redundancies now are massive in the marketplace. One person now can do what several people used to do. But what's going to happen in the future? One person's going to be able to do twice several, right? And one person's going to be able to do 3 times several, right? That's just going to continue. So redundancy is going to continue to happen, and it's going to get faster and bigger and larger, eliminating the need for people. Next is the reduced human need related purely to the technology, right? You've been in your grocery store in the last week, right? I mean, this is almost old news, but you can go in your grocery store today, right, and you can check out. You can go buy your items and check out without having to talk to a person or have a person check you out, right? Now, what do you think is going to happen in the future? Do you think it's just going to be a couple little stations? No, the future is going to be, there won't be any checkers. It's just a matter of how long that takes. There won't be any checkers. There won't be any checkers in any retail establishment when there's still retail establishments, but we'll get to that in a moment, because they're not necessary. There might be an overseer, right? There might be security to make sure nobody walks out, but they'll probably figure out a way to mechanize that. But bottom line is robotics are, it's just a massive, massive form of incredible efficiency that requires no health insurance, doesn't get sick, right? Just oil it every now and then. But bottom line is human need continues to get reduced, and that's not going to stop. And then this one hurts a little bit. Out with the old and in with the new. You're like, Todd, what are you talking about? Okay, well, so many things are getting mechanized and systematized, which again is only going to increase. Not to mention that the younger generations are more proficient with the technology, typically than the older worker. And what you have is the ability to have a less experienced, lower cost person do the work that used to be done by a much more seasoned, higher cost person. And given that all businesses function related to numbers, especially not even especially, public companies are under the pressure of pleasing the stockholder, which means the older guy is out, or the older gal is out for the younger person who can do the job with the systems in place. And then private companies have the same pressure, because if they don't make money, they're out of business. So this is just reality. I'm just helping you get clarity on this, because this is a mega trend. It's a mega trend, and this one, the rising healthcare cost, is like the kicker, because healthcare costs have exploded in the last 20 years. But we haven't even seen the tip of this. The projections are that healthcare costs are going to go up 60%, that's 60% in the next 10 years. So just think to yourself, what employer in their right mind is going to want to provide it? Who's going to want to provide it? Or if they're going to have to provide it, they're going to try to provide it with as few people as possible. And that, the technology and the healthcare costs rising, is driving this last little nugget here. And that is that every single model that you look at, every survey, whether it's governmental or private sector, says 40 to 50% minimum of all workers will be contract workers by 2020. So what is a contract worker? Self-employed. That's what it is, right? Have to get your own health insurance, have to work for yourself, and highly disposable, right? Contract workers are highly disposable because there's no relationship, right? It's not the same as people being in the space all the time. This is just reality. I'm not trying to depress you. I'm helping you understand where you sit, what's going on, because this is actually fueling opportunity. So the first thing that I want to be really clear about is the most important thing you can do is invest in you. That is, invest in you and be proactive, because this is where true security starts. And number one is developing yourself and your skills. Again, I have a undergraduate degree in economics. I have an MBA, and what I learned in all that schooling has nothing to do with how to be successful in the workplace. Nothing. all schooling does is prepare you for a job. It's what they don't teach you in business school are the stuff you need to know. How to develop yourself personally, how to develop productivity skills, how to interpersonally communicate, right? That's the stuff that makes someone successful, not, the history of, how Keynesian economics works, right? That does not make someone successful. That's just stuff. That's just theory. So investing in yourself, most people go to school and then they go to school and they never purposefully work on themselves. They only grow based on their environment. Those days are over. If you're not purposeful in investing in yourself, you will totally be left behind, because you need to be able to confidently navigate in the planet. And in order to do that, you have to invest personally in yourself. Next is being in the right community. Being around the right people is really, really important. And most people aren't thoughtful about the communities that they're in. Maybe their church. I think people are pretty thoughtful about the church that they might go to if they go to church. But other than that, where they live, they're in a community. Where they work is a community. And if you look around, what are the influences in those communities? Because being in the right influences is really, really important, right? Having positive and inspired, supportive, encouraging, caring relationships, that kind of community is what people need in today's world. They need to be around doers, right? Caring doers. And so you have to be purposeful and thoughtful in finding communities to support what you do. In other words, like-minded people who are saying, hey, this isn't woe is me time. This is unprecedented opportunity time. That's the world you're in, right? I just gave you some pretty stark stuff. And so you could go, oh my gosh, that's bad. Or actually you could go, holy cow, that must mean there's amazing opportunity out there. And there is. Next is charting your own course. Decide what you want out of life. I mentioned earlier, life is short. I lost a brother when he was 42, right? He never got to pursue the stuff that he was interested in his life. He never did. He didn't know that was going to happen, and neither do you, right? You might live to be 100. But that would even be worse if you didn't pursue the thing you want in your life and you live to be 100 and you got all those years to look back and go, wow, what if I actually took a shot? What if I took a shot on me, right? Life is short, right? Life is short. You'll be a lot more joyful, a lot more inspired if you go after what you want in your life, right? Go after what you want. Don't settle. And then positioning yourself to win with change is simple. These trends I'm talking about, which I touched on in the job world in a minute, I'm going to touch on some really big ones that you can jump into in a second. Work with them. If you work with change, right, you work with what's going on, you go with the flow, all kinds of cool stuff can happen for you. And this is one of them. This is the mega one, and that is developing a home-based income stream with the trends. This is key, because it's how you can create a financial safety net, and it's how you can create a sense of security financially as much as you can. And the cool thing is it's never been easier to start. It's not like when I started 28 years ago to build a home business, and it was like, wow, the technology wasn't there. Nobody believed you could do it, so people were hesitant to do business with you, right? It was really, really difficult, but it was possible then. It's so possible now. It's mind-boggling, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit more. But if you take a look at the trends that are driving the world, man, it is totally creating a home-based economy. And so we're touching on some examples of what you can do, and that's where we're going to go right now, okay? So this is a monster, absolute monster, internet commerce and social media. So, internet commerce. Online shopping is obviously exploding, as those of you who are watching can see this graph. Those of you who can't see this graph, 500% in the last 10 years. 500% is how much internet commerce has increased. And guess what? That's only just the beginning, right? If you think about, there's still a large segment of the population that is late adopters, right? They're slow to the game, right? Because they were uncomfortable with it. And now it's like, okay, it's probably more safe to shop online than it is to go to a store, right? So online internet commerce is absolutely exploding. It's just exploding. And it makes perfect sense. It's convenient. Why go through the hassle to go drive somewhere and get mistreated by the person behind the counter who hates their job half the time, right? And buy something that's overpriced because you're paying for the store space, when from the convenience of your home you can go click, 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 here comes my stuff, right? This makes perfect sense, right? And this is just the beginning. So convenience, you tend to get much higher quality products, and you can search for high quality products. And this one I'm going to mention, and I almost don't like mentioning, but it's a reality of our life, and it's probably going to continue, and that's safety. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm not crazy about being out in big crowds. Just not crazy about it in today's world. So more and more people are going to they're going to want to shop online. They're going to want to shop from home. And so if you just think about yourself, right, and there's many other things that I could have contributed here about that, but think about yourself. How much do you shop from home now compared to how much you did 10 years ago? I'm sure that's night and day. But what about 5 years ago? Probably still night and day, right? Probably still way more than you did 5 years ago. But now think about how much you shop online, and then think about the fact that you really like that, right? You're comfortable with it. It's easy. And so what do you think is going to happen in the future? So what does that mean? Well, certainly it creates opportunity. And again, it also creates difficulty, right? Because think about retail jobs. What's going to happen to retail jobs? They're going away now. They're just going to continue to go away. There's always going to be some retail, but there's going to be less people working in it, and there's going to be less demand for it. And so again, it affects jobs, but it creates opportunities. And heck, you can start an internet business for virtually nothing. You don't even need to be tech savvy in today's world because, I mean, things have evolved that much, right? So you can create massive income in the internet space if you know what to do. Next, you have social media. Talk about a playground. And I'm talking about getting on, you know, Facebook and seeing who had pizza for dinner, right? Or you know, picking your top 10 concerts of all time. What I'm talking about is a marketplace that is massive. There are 3 times the users on social media right now as there were 6 years ago. Up to 2.5 billion people are using social media in some capacity right now. Think about how you could be engaging in that and learn how to work with it, right? It's an unbelievable marketplace that goes all the way around the world, right? You can be accessing the entire world from your smartphone, right? That is massive, massive opportunity if you know what to do. And again, it's not hard to learn, but you need to plug in somewhere where you can get taught what to do. And then next is like product markets. And I'm going to use health and wellness because it's booming as one example. And it's personally my choice. You know, I had access, like you, to any product market you choose to build a business with. I chose this arena because of the trends and because I'm interested in it. But there's many types of markets to choose from. This happens to be one of the most booming that there is, and there's no slowdown in sight. This is just also going to accelerate. So, you know, you can look at the growth over the last 20 years from 96 to 2016. It's been maybe tenfold, not quite tenfold in revenue in the industry. That's staggering, but it's not even close to slowing down. Why? Because of self-evidency. You see, you still have a large percent of the population don't even understand they can be proactive in taking care of themselves. But what you do have is another segment of the population who has been taking care of themselves for quite some time, and they are self-evident, right? You have people in their 50s and 60s who look like they're in their 40s, and people are like, how do you get to look like that, right? Or people who have solved health issues without going to doctors, and people are like, how do you do that, right? So self-evidency, here's a really simple thing to think about. You can't hold truth down. You can't hold truth down, ever. Right? It's going to come out. And this is one of the markets where it's coming out. Beauty is another market where it's evolving. But I like to talk about this one because it's a great example of a power kind of market to be in. So you have a booming industry, and then you have, on the other side, you have a substantial amount of the population struggling with all kinds of health issues and frustrated with the medical community and looking to be proactive and figure out how they can live a life without drugs, right? That's kind of what's happening in this market, which is what is driving the fitness craze and the nutrition craze and all these different components. And I don't even like using the word craze. It's not craze, it's a reality. It's just, it feels like a craze because more and more people are getting it. They're understanding it. Now, I look at things from an economics perspective because that's my area of expertise. And when I look at this marketplace, the reason I love this marketplace is the products that are in this marketplace are consumable, right? Consumables, you want to be in consumables if you're building a business. Why? Because that means repeat business, right? So you don't want to be like in something that's not repeatable, because then you've got constantly chase business the rest of your life, right? And when you're in consumables, you can build a base of users that use your stuff over and over and over and over, especially given the internet and social media and all these trends that you're in front of. They're also emotional, right? They're products that make an emotional impact on people, that can be life-changing in a variety of ways. But emotional is really, really important, because then people are like, man, I would never go without this. And then there's a huge need, of course. So obviously you want to be in something with a huge need, but it's the kind of market you can create ongoing business, which, depending on the model that you work and the kind of business you do, you can create passive style or residual style income, which is the best kind of income to create. That's how you create income streams. And then obviously this is a growing, booming market. And again, there are others, but I like to be in product markets as opposed to services. The reason I don't like to be in services from the standpoint of marketing a service, and I'm not necessarily talking about you as the service, although even you as a service has a limited life, right? There's only so many hours you can clean, right? Or you can coach. You can, but there's only so many hours, right? So you have to find other venues if you want to continue to expand. But then any other kind of service, let's say it's power or something, which, you know, has been deregulated, and so there are companies in power, right? So power has a lot of competition and no margin. You see, products have margin in them. Margin allows for opportunity to make income. Wherever you have shrinking margin, you don't have as much opportunity to make income, and so your cost, your income per user gets tiny, 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 can be down to pennies. And so you don't want to necessarily be in any kind of model. I mean, it's certainly up to you. There's people that do really well in power or something. I'm just giving you my perspective from an economic standpoint, that, you know, I would rather be in something with larger margins that don't shrink than something where there could be a price war and you could shrink the margin to almost nothing, because the biggest companies could afford to make a penny off of a user, right? So that's the challenge with services, and you've seen that historically. You know, years ago there were home-based telecom companies, and the big companies said, okay, we're going to do away with that, and then they just had a price war and blew them out because they couldn't survive, didn't have enough users to survive. And so if you're in something that's a service driven, you're going to have some other component to that to really drive the way that you make your income, you know, not just off the user. So let's talk about really the mega trend here that a lot of this is driving, and that is the home-based business. And really, it's the smartest thing you can do. What the smartest thing, I can't think of a smarter thing, actually, economically to do than have a home-based business, because of all the things that it means. So, you know, you can take an interest or a passion and turn it into the business. If there's something that you love to do, you can turn that into a business in today's world. There's a million different ways to do it. The beautiful thing about home-based business, there's low startup. You can work on your own terms and in your own time, right? And then this is the monster piece right here. This is the piece that most people just don't know, and that is the tax advantages. If people understood the tax advantages of a home business, they'd have one. If they don't, they don't, right? Unless someone has so much money, they don't care. But those people already understand the tax advantages, and they have other ways to utilize it. But for the everyday guy, right, someone like me or the everyday gal, this is the way. Because just by starting a home business, you keep more of what you currently make, because the tax code is to your advantage, because all kinds of things that you do, you'll have the opportunity to write off, depending on what it is, right? Your computer, your phone, certain products you buy, different supplies you buy, a portion of your house, your utilities, your car, and I'm not giving you tax advice, I'm just telling you the way it is. You can do your own research. Right? If you're in a home-based business company where you can work around the world, then you got things like travel and entertainment that can be written off. There's all kinds of stuff. So you're able to write those things off, which are things that you more than likely would do and use anyway. And then they lower your tax burden from your job. So that just alone makes it make sense. But if you flip it to the next part, you also earn money, because you should be in business to earn money. And so, not only do you keep more what you currently make, you're able to earn more, right? So it just, if you don't have a home business, you don't understand. That's the truth, right? So I'm just letting you know that so you can go figure that out. And then, this is part of this is what I love, your vision. What do you want your life to look like, right? Your purpose. What kind of impact do you want to make? Let's put it this way. We are not put on the planet just to be consumers. We're put on the planet to be contributors, right? So figure out your purpose and create something, and you get the fruit. People bust their butt every day for someone else's dream. That's what happens when someone goes to a job. They're not working for their own dream. They're trading a chunk of their life to get a paycheck, right, for someone else to realize their dream. That's essentially what it is. Hey, life is short. Work on your dream. And then the other issue with a home business is the E-Myth challenge. And I'm just going to put this out here before I move to the next slide, because it will give you an understanding about why the next thing I talk about is just crushing and isn't going to slow down. And that is the E-Myth issue, which really was brought to light from, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 years ago by a guy named Michael Gerber. And he talked about, the fact that, people start a business because they love to do something, or they have this interest in something, and then they start a business because they like doing it. Maybe they start on the side, it starts to grow, and then it becomes a full-time business. They move into the business, and then they start having all kinds of problems because the thing that they started to do that they love to do has now turned into one thing they love to do and 20 things they have no clue about, right? Because now they're running a business, and running a business in the traditional sense, even if it's a home business in a traditional home, sense where you've started some kind of business from your home on your own, you've got all kinds of things that you don't know how to do, and they take away from doing the thing that makes you money. Now, what eliminates that are home business companies, and this is the industry that is absolutely flying. I mean, you literally have to be living in a cave without a cell phone and with like cotton in your ears to not know what's going on relative to the home business industry, and specifically direct sales and network marketing, because at this point this industry is starting to dominate, and it's just getting started. I mean, it's mind-boggling what is happening. Again, I got into this industry back in 1989 when it didn't make sense to most people. They didn't even think it was a real thing. And I tell you, it was really hard, but you still could build a business, which I did all the way back then. Man, it's a whole lot easier now in today's world. But there's a reason you're seeing and hearing more about it, because it's booming. 100 million people worldwide are doing it. Why? Because there's no E-Myth here, right? It's a business in a box, basically, unless you don't even need the box. It's a simple process you find, and you get to work with great products, and it's easy to do. I mean, it doesn't mean you get rich overnight, because you don't. But nothing of value does that happen in. But it is booming, and you need to understand these numbers. There's 100 million people worldwide right now operating in the industry. That's nothing. There's going to be 300 million, maybe 500 million in the next 10 to 15 years. Why? Because of all the stuff I just said, right? That is absolutely what is driving this industry. At this point, right, the industry does 176 or 178. I might have heard, I saw recently 178, so it's gone up like 4 to 6 billion in the last year. But let's say 176 billion, that's more, way more than every single sport dollar in the world. And everybody thinks sports is big business, and it is. But if you take every penny of revenue that comes from any aspect of the sports industry and you add it together, all sports around the world, get receipts, sponsoring, everything, that's 145 billion. This industry is way bigger already, and it's still early in the growth curve. And why? Because of everything I'm talking about. Economic changes, internet, tech tools, massive opportunity, much lower learning curve, easy to start, easy to work in. And you're probably thinking, who needs Domino's? What the heck does that mean? Because Domino's represents franchising, right? Franchising is another way people can start their own business. But seriously, why would you spend 250 grand that Domino's will tell you you might make it back in 10 years to own your own pizza shop and literally be a slave to that shop, when you could, I started my business for nothing. It does millions in revenue. It did millions of revenue around the world. Started with nothing, not because I'm in great shape, just because I worked hard. And in this kind of work, right? And didn't have to have any of that risk. And I know thousands of people around the world who are highly successful. And I teach people globally, right? I teach and coach people in this industry. But I want to give you a caution. There's a lot of things out there. And so you have to be a little bit careful, because just like any booming industry, right? If you look historically back to the last 20 years, there was a real estate boom. So what happened in that? Well, there was a lot of shysters, right? There was a lot of people who took advantage of people, both in the mortgage side and in the real estate side. Even big banks did it. Right, there was a stock market boom. What did you have? Well, you had a lot of people taking advantage of that and doing bad stuff. So you're going to have that in everything, right? You just have to understand that. So I'm just going to give you a couple things to be careful of when you look into network marketing. You need to be careful of hype. If people are really hyping how much you can make and hyping how miraculous it is, you need to run and not walk, run. Matter of fact, get in your car and drive, but get away from that person, because if they got a hype, you need to say, okay, that's a giant red flag. If they're giving you false promises, that's a giant red flag. If there's a high startup cost, there shouldn't need to be high startup costs. If someone's telling you need to spend thousands of dollars, that's not true, right? That means they've got a model that's predicated on high money for recruiting, and that's not sustainable. And so they might show you a big fat check. Oh, hey, here, look at this. This guy made $38,000 in his third month. Right? That's not going to happen for you. You're just going to be part of him making $38,000 in the next month by making your big investment. So you just need to be conscious and look at what you're looking at and make sure, you know, that you're not getting fed a bill of goods. And then the other thing you got to look at is company stability, right? I mean, what's the failure rate for businesses in general in the United States? Well, the failure rate is that 80% of all businesses, I'm not talking about network marketing, all businesses fail in the first 5 years, 80%. And then of the ones that live in those first 5 years, 80% of those fail in the next 5, right? So if you're looking at a company and it's not 10 years old, you just need to know that there's a high probability it won't last. You just need to know that, right? You might say, hey, I like this opportunity and I can make some money in it, and that's fine. Just don't have any false illusions that it might last a long time. Be prepared for the fact that you'll probably have to move to something else in the future. And then I want to talk to you about what I think is the ultimate and what will be the future of home business. It's the perfect model for online. It's really the ideal way to work, because there's literally no startup money for the most part to speak of. And you know, these are rare. Pure referral marketing companies are rare because you really have to make your own stuff to be able to do it. And most people that get into a home business company, that start home business companies, they don't have that kind of capital. They don't want to spend $100 million to build a manufacturing plant, right? They'll go get somebody else to make the product. And so they're not going to use a referral marketing where, you know, that is through pure pass-through. And then you're probably like, well, I don't understand what you mean. So I'm going to show you what I mean. But this is the future. This will be the future. But there's a few of these companies that exist now. So the power to referral marketing is you have all the growth benefits of network marketing. In other words, you have the ability to build a residual-based income stream. You have the ability to at times have some pretty good growth, and you can work as fast as you want, right? The opportunity of networking exists in referral marketing, but you don't have sign-up fees. You typically get your free marketing websites. You don't have any inventory, and you don't have an exchange of product for money. In other words, in a true referral marketing company, everybody buys at one price from the manufacturer. So you don't have a situation where Bob is buying a product at $28 and selling it to Mary for $45. Of course, that's not how this works. Bob tells Mary about it, and Mary orders direct from the manufacturer. She just has to tell them that Bob referred her, and she gets hers at $28 too, and she doesn't pay a fee to have the right to do that. That's the power of this model. It's my favorite one. And again, I look at things from an economics perspective because that is my lens. That's my background. This is the smartest distribution and compensation model I know of. It's absolutely the smartest. It's just very pure. Someone doesn't need to be a skilled salesperson to get involved and work at this. They can work on their own time. It's very simple to work in. It can be lucrative. and typically it has the highest quality products that you can find, and there's no risk, right? So it's got all upside with no downside. Again, people work at their own pace. There's no pressure in this type of model, because in a true referral marketing model, it's all about helping others to help yourself, because there isn't that, oh, someone's getting involved and they're paying $1,500 to do it, and the person who hyped them into doing it is getting $600 on that night. That doesn't exist here. So it's a very pure build. Okay, so that gives you some understanding about what's going on in the market and what are some opportunities for you, because you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be stuck, and you don't have to be fearful. There is so much opportunity. It's mind-blowing. It's one of the greatest times economically to be alive in the history of the human race. It's right now. It'll probably be better in a year and even better in another year. Don't let the economic factors affect you. That's because those economic factors you hear about, the things that are scary, they're traditionalized. They're not about how wide open it is. They're about fear, right? Isn't that what the media loves to cast out, is fear. So here's some things I want you to consider. One, you are good enough. Right? The biggest issue you really have is the mirror, right? It's the mirror. It's thinking that maybe you can't do it. I know what this feels like. I mean, you don't really know me, but if you did, you'd understand. And the more you hear my story and how I progressed in my career, I started as someone with no money who was an introvert. I failed every sales aptitude test I ever took, but I was able to build something, because you are good enough. You have everything you need. You just have to apply yourself. And so I'm just telling you, that's a fact. That is a fact. You're not missing anything. Just because you might not be like Mary or Sally or Bob, they're not like you either. You have everything you need to succeed in this life. You just have to do what I said earlier, and that is develop yourself. The next thing is, you are capable of so much more than you know. And I mean this like by miles. You have no idea what you're capable of, and you never will if you don't apply yourself. And trust me, at some point, if you don't go for it in your life, you're going to look back and go, what if? And man, you do not want to have that. You are capable of way more. And then your struggles are your springboards. You know, most everybody goes through difficult times. The question is, what happens from that? And you have the opportunity to turn your struggles into a great story. And that great story can then make a difference for a lot of people. Think about that. It was Tony Robbins that said, your life, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, so that you can go out there and make a difference from it. And then the last thing that I want to say is that you are always only 12 months from major change. That doesn't mean it will be a walk in the park. You'll have to apply yourself in whatever you decide to do. You will have to apply yourself and put some sweat into it, and make a few sacrifices and be consistent, but you can change your life in 12 months dramatically. I'm not telling you to get rich in 12 months. I'm telling you you can have a richer life in 12 months, right? What you become and the way you feel, not to mention the progress you're going to make, if you apply yourself to something in the next 12 months, you will be incredibly happy. And I hope you can look back and say, man, I'm so glad I heard that webinar, because that helped me to take a step, because that's the key. Take the first step. So I appreciate you spending your time tonight with me. The person that you learned about this webinar from, is whatever, they're already doing something. So I highly suggest you talk to them and find out what they're doing, and see if what they're doing is a fit for you. And I certainly hope that you found value tonight. And I wish you all a great evening. Thanks for being here.